Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Let's Talk Arsenal series, our twice weekly show on a Tuesday and Friday at 5 o'clock UK time. On our Tuesday show, or I forget to put the border around the edge, we are joined typically by guests. This week I'm joined by two of our fantastic expert members. First off, I'm joined by Toby. How you doing, mate? Introduce yourself and tell people how you become an Arsenal fan, mate.
Well, I'm 23. I'm from Brighton, southeast. I'm an Arsenal fan from when I was young. My dad, my mum, my sister, my cousins, my aunties, my uncles, all of our family are Arsenal supporters. Just got it from them, really.
Nice. I mean, to be fair, it's a lot more in depth than mine because my dad's not an Arsenal fan, my mum's not an Arsenal fan, my granddad was. So you've got more of a legitimate link.
Yeah.
So fair play. We're also joined by the technically challenged Dave. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
I'm all right. A little bit late, but better late than never, Tom. But
of course. So let us know how you became an Arsenal fan, mate.
Ooh, a long story. I think I've sort of revealed in the Discord server that I've got two dads, both of whom are Spurs fans. So I managed to sort of meander my way through to actually becoming an Arsenal fan. One of my best mates at school when I was 8, he said, "Just come over, I'll show you my room." And I was like, "Oh, hang on a minute." And it was like, it was a shrine. It was a shrine to Arsenal. There was wallpaper Arsenal. There was duvet Arsenal. I just thought this is fantastic. So,
there your friend Carl Jenkinson, is that who it was?
More or less, yeah. And since that day, I've been an Arsenal fan. I think I've been rewarded by the decision. My dad's never really spoken to me properly ever since. But then, my family's a bit weird. My brother's a West Ham fan, so
wow.
It's all London.
Yeah, it's London. So 40 years of ups and downs ever since, really.
Awesome. Well, it's good to have you both on the show. Of course, you're both expert members and you're massive parts of our Discord server and making the chat that go on and hopefully keeping Christopher Fung in his place when he gets out of line. Good old Chris and everyone else in there. If you'd like to join the Discord server, people, all you have to do is join the expert members crew by clicking that join button in the description below. But let's crack on with today's show. We've got a couple of things to talk about specifically. Holding's contract is where I want to start because it's something that's come out over the last couple of days. I've reported on it now, and we talked about it briefly on the pod, only very lightly. And I wanted to go in a little bit more depth and get some of you guys' thoughts on the contract. I'm not going to give my 10 cents yet and influence you in any way. Dave, I'm going to start with you first, mate. Holding getting a new deal for you, do you look at that as a positive thing or less so?
I think initially I was pretty underwhelmed by this potential news. I think, he was nearly out the door, wasn't he, in the summer to Newcastle. He was close to going on loan. So Arteta didn't look like he fancied him. And then I think Arteta realised that Saliba wasn't ready, so cancelled that back in and he's become a bit of a fixture, but probably because he is the lesser of a couple of evils. Mustafi is never going to be that player that at 35 million he should be. I think having thought about it a bit though, and I've looked at some stats in respect to this today. And obviously it's not the kind of paid for stuff that you get, Tom, but it's not too bad actually. So defensively, Rob Holding's got third best tackles per game on average, 1.5, with Thomas Partey is the highest with 2. He's got the 8th most interceptions per game with 1, with El Neni topping that at 1.6, which is surprising in itself. This is where his strength is for me. His clearances, he's got the highest out of the entire team. So that's what he is. He's a clearance specialist at centre back. So he has 4 on average per game. The closest to that is Tierney and Gabriel with 2.9 each. So he is a no-nonsense English-style centre-back, and that's what you get. I'm not sure whether that's what going forward we actually need, but on reflection, his stats are actually better than what I thought it was going to be. And also, in respect to blocks, he's third highest, 0.5. Gabriel's got the highest at 1.1. Sorry if I'm boring you, but it's
fine.
Ariel's won second with 2.1, and Gabriel is the highest with 2.3. If you look at David Luiz in comparison, his average is 1 per game.
Jesus Christ.
so bringing all of that stuff together, I actually think on reflection, my initial reaction was, not really into this. But actually, I think he's a decent centre back and a good squad player.
Yeah, that's kind of I think that's how a lot of people perceive him as a bit of a squad player that's maybe playing a few more minutes than people might like him to so far this season. But the stats kind of support Arteta's decision in choosing him. Toby, where's your head at with Holding?
Dave made some good points there with all those interceptions and the clearances. But I'm just thinking about if he does get the new contract, say, and I think what they're saying for 3 years, is it?
Yeah, probably around 3-year extension. Yeah,
his contract's not up till 2023 anyway. So if bring Saliba into the picture, if he does go out on loan and say he needs to come back or his time's up and he's done a good job, will Holding be in the way of the Saliba progress? Because I know some people are saying Holding might be a squad player by then, but would Holding want to be that? So I don't know really, because it's the same old Arsenal. Like now, putting a player on a 3-year contract when his contract's not even up yet. So I can't really say really at the minute, because he is playing well, like Dave said. So I think I have to give it till the end of the season until we see where he's at. So I can't say yes or no at the minute, really.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, you've got to wait until you see all the evidence, I suppose, to make a foregone conclusion. I think that, in my view around Holding, I think he gets a lot more criticism than he's worth from a lot of the fan base. I mean, when I tweeted the article about it, the amount of people I got going, this isn't good news, he's crap, he's this, he's that. Because he's not fashionable, he's English, he costs very little. He was brought in under Arsene Wenger, which in itself a lot of people would like us to move away from.
Where did he come from? Was it Bolton?
Bolton, yeah. He joined from Bolton for around £1.5 million. And that's for me one of our biggest bargains, really, actually, when you think about it as a player. When we spent 35 million on Mustafi, and you consider the difference in output that we've got from both of those players. Holding's been instrumental in both of the FA Cup finals that he played in, playing alongside Per Mertesacker in one, and then playing alongside David Luiz in the other, and Kieran Tierney, of course, in the last one against Chelsea. So he is putting some good performances. This season, I thought he was poor, to be honest-ish, against Everton. I didn't think he was amazing. I think he was the main problem, by far. I thought the only other bad game he's had this season was against Villa, when the whole team got ripped apart. But besides that, I can't really pinpoint Holding as a genuine issue for Arsenal so far. I think he gets very exposed by Bellerin, going too far up the right-hand side, leaving him to face one-on-ones, which is probably his worst part of his defensive game, where he's left one-on-one against a tricky winger. He gets turned inside out pretty much 9 times out of 10. But that's down to the right fullback to cover him. I also think that's why he suits playing in a back 3 rather than the right side of a back 2. So I think it's personally a good thing. The next point, Dave, I want to come on to, though, is talking about Arsenal contracts and value and protecting value, because we're losing 3 centre-backs this summer, and I think a lot of people are glad to see the back of them, to be honest, in David Luiz, Socrates and Mustafi. But the thing is, we're losing those guys for free. I know that David Luiz was a 1-year deal. Socrates wasn't. We paid around £16 million for him, and we paid, when it amasses, when you look at the total of it, David Luiz costs around £20 million on top of including the £8 million buyer fee, when you put all the wages and stuff together. And then Mustafi, of course, we've already mentioned, cost over 30 million quid in himself. So you're looking there at over 60 to 70 million quid's worth of investment, no matter what you think about those players in terms of their quality, completely gone for nothing. So when it comes down to signing these players that are holding on to contracts, my argument would be to you, Dave, is that we're doing the right thing by protecting the value, so that if we do sell these players in the future, we'll get a more protected fee for them.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose as fans, we all just we concentrate a little bit too much maybe on, are they actually any good for this club? And, compare them to, great centre-backs of old, the guy behind me just there and, Sol Campbell and, people like that. We're just absolutely incredible players. I think, we desperately need as a club to become a lot more business savvy. I think, it's not a recent thing, but it's a 10-year plus thing whereby we've just let these contracts run down, have been unable to secure extensions to them, and then we see players like this go on a free. I mean, obviously the worst one being Ramsey recently, but that's a whole different conversation. But I think we need to stop doing that as a club. But it's a big balance, isn't it? It's between keeping a player that I actually now think is probably a bit better than he actually is. I thought he was, and then, as you say, safeguarding that investment going forward. That said, he only cost us, as you said, 1.5, 2 million quid. I wouldn't like to hazard a guess what he would be worth in today's money. It's very difficult to sort of calculate that, really, given COVID and finances are on the floor, etc. So I think, as I said, in conclusion, I think it's worthwhile extending it. He is of a decent age, and he might not be the right-sided centre-back that we want, but maybe he's the one that we need.
Yeah, I think it's a good assessment. So I'm getting feedback on one of your. I think it might be David. So the volume it might be that you need to turn down, Dave, on your screen. I'm getting feedback. That's all. Toby, in terms of kind of following on what Dave said there, sometimes we do keep players for too long. Sometimes we don't give them contracts quick enough, and it's about finding that balance and obviously moving players on at the right time. The thing that we haven't talked about, something that I think a lot of people miss, is that he's a homegrown player, and it's something that Arsenal are kind of lacking right now. We've got obviously more foreign players than we can actually put back into the team, and that's why Sokratis and Özil have had to be, rather than the reason as to why they were, but it's why they've had to be omitted from the team. So keeping these young, well, not even necessarily young, mid-20s now, Rob Holding, keeping these guys, that is important, and building the squad around a British core is always going to be key at Arsenal as well, do you not think?
Definitely. I think, especially his age, I think he's about 25 now, isn't he?
Yeah.
So if he did get that 3-year contract, that'll take up to 28, which people are saying now was the prime age sort of thing. So even then, you can start building younger players around him. And it is definitely about the balance, getting it right in between. It's like Mkhitaryan. I think we lost money on Mkhitaryan, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because we left it too late. So yeah, I do think English players now, like they said with the COVID and all the politics going on now, money is not really enormous. So even if Rob Holding didn't get the contract, I still don't think he would go for a lot of money. Which is not to say that we would make some money on him, but I don't think so.
Let's jump into the chat and see what some of the guys are saying around Rob Holding. Vinny Eagle says Holding is a decent player and has a lot of room for improvement. He comes across as a leader as well, which will grow with time. And of course, he was made captain in the game against Everton as well. Gerald says, Tom, I like Holding. Sell him for around 20 to 30 million. I think you might struggle to get that much, but I think it's certainly worth mentioning that by signing a player to a new deal, you're not risking that value diminishing the closer he gets to that final year of his contract. Alex McCarthy says, yeah, anything under 80 grand is fine with me. Anything above is just classic Arsenal to pay a player way over than what they're worth. That is something that I think does need to get a little bit of focus. If we do end up giving him a new deal, it needs to be with a level of measure. You can't overpay a player that ultimately will probably want to upgrade upon, with Saliba, with Gabriel being that partnership, and that is important to consider. So in the chat box, just give me a quick yes or no. Do you think this is kind of yes, this is a good thing for Arsenal to sign Holding onto a new deal, or is it no for you? Do you not think Arsenal should be looking to offer Holding a new deal? So let me see what you guys are going to say to that. Kian says yes. Guna Matt says yes. YouTube's a little bit behind, so it's going to take a few seconds for you guys to catch up, but let me know. Vinny Eagle, meanwhile, says, Tom, serious question. Would you consider Jack Wilshere on a play as you play? No, I don't. Personally, I wouldn't, just because I think that it's another player that would be on a short-term deal, another man in the squad when we actually need to be kind of limiting the squad right now. Victor Edwards says yes. Yannick Mack says, now Rob Holding listens to country music. Bin it. That's a classic Yannick in the chat. Jared Carver says yes. Harry says yes. Neil says no. Arsenal Granny says yes. Ed, along with Toby, is undecided right now. Kamal says yes. Tony says no. Easy L Ed says yes if we have him as a backup and the wages are on point. Dan Roberts says no. And Gary Hodder says yes, if not on 150 grand a week. So that kind of concludes that Holding part of the discussion. The next part to talk about is probably more of a lengthier discussion around January. According to quite a lot of media and Ornstein as well, is that Arsenal and Arteta, I was going to call him Edueta, which was going to be a weird combination of the two. But Arteta and Edu have supposedly now agreed that a plan that they have going forwards, not just for January, but also for the summer. I want to focus on January specifically. Toby, I'm going to come back to you first on this one. We discussed off air the way that we were going to talk about this, and the first way to approach it is look at what you would do personally. How would you attack the January window in a realistic sense, and what is it that Arsenal have as priorities that they need to get sorted out?
I think getting to January is going to be the hardest bit with the two games we've got left in the Premier League, Chelsea and Brighton. So I still think that could have a say on what happens, whether we win or lose. But what I would do personally is, I think getting to January, like we said all along, get the dead wood out. Get the players whose contract ends in 6 months when it's in January anyway, get them out. Get them all out. Bring the youth up for 6 months. It's not like you're bringing them up for another season. It's just 6 months. Get points in the league. You know, even I think some people said it in the Discord yesterday. Being out of European football for a year would do us well, and I have to agree with that. But I'm thinking as well, what's going to happen if we don't get points necessarily in the next two games? We could potentially drop into the bottom three, which means whoever they're going to go for, you know, in January, whether it's a loan or a buy, who's going to look and say, where are they? What are they? 17th. I don't want to go to them. No, I think I was talking to Dan on the Discord earlier before I come on, and he was talking about, I think his name was Michael Elise, and that he's going on for about 8 million. People are putting in bids, and I saw Liverpool are interested for him, you know, and especially then, who's he going to look for? Even if he doesn't necessarily get games at Liverpool, you still would not want to, you know, make that bad move. Yeah. So I think January, get in January, ship out all the deadwood, like I said, and bring the youth up for 6 months. You know, he's not giving them a whole year. You know, so that's what I would do.
I'm glad you said that first. I'm genuinely glad that you didn't go straight in with, we need to sign this guy, this guy, this guy. Because I think that's obviously it's a very short-minded way of looking at it. Yes, we need to add. Yes, there needs to be creativity put into there. But I'm very happy that you went that way. I'm not going to say too much on my part yet, but Dave, I'm interested to get your thoughts on the January. How are you attacking this window?
I totally agree. I think it's deadwood first, but the problem with that is we tried to do that in the summer, and actually nobody was taking any of our players. Okay, so a lot of them have 6 months less on their contracts, and so, you know, arguably would be either cheaper, or they can actually speak, can't they, to teams abroad anyway, because it's January. But yeah, absolutely, we've got a massively bloated squad. We've got a very unbalanced squad. If you look at the number of just midfielders who go on Arsenal FC and just see how many we have, and none of them really are what you call, you know, top class in my view. So yeah, we desperately need to clear the decks. There's a broom that needs to be swept through the entire squad. But the problem is, I mean, look at Dan's fantastic spreadsheet that he did the other day. You're talking 30 players. Now, you're actually talking probably 12 first-team players that you actually would prefer to get out of the door. Now, that's just never going to happen. So in January, Yeah, absolutely. If Socrates wants to go, fantastic, because he's not even registered anyway. If Ozil finds somebody that wants to pay his wages, but I doubt that's going to happen. How many times we've tried that? And Louise isn't going anywhere until the end of the season anyway. And Mustafi will probably stick around as well. There's nobody sort of taking them. But if they do come calling, absolutely get rid of those, shrink the squad down, and then we know what we're looking at. For me as well, but we've had this argument time and time again on Discord about what's he doing with the youth. He seems to like some youth players in Saka, and is overplaying him perhaps, and yet not giving ESR a go at a game when he's crying out for it. And in fact, if you look at Emil Smith-Rowe and say Buendia, who we'll probably come on to, I think they're pretty similar type players, similar stature, similar sort of ability to receive the ball, turn, press forward, create, score, goal. So I think we've already got a potential answer in there. It's just that Arteta doesn't want to use him for whatever reason.
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of banged that drum quite a bit for a while about Emil Smith-Rowe and wanting to see him more in the lineup, and it's also about kind of fitting him into the right system, because if you do play Emil Smith-Rowe, you're either playing him out on the left, which is what he's done in the Europa League in the few appearances that we've seen him, or you play him in the position that we all want to see him in, which is in that central attacking midfield role. And if you do that, you're then having a midfield three, which means you're of course having a back four. And I still feel with that Thomas Partey, playing with a back four is so risky to the turnover and the counter attack that so many teams in the Premier League can set upon us, that you do have to be careful about when you play Emil Smith-Rowe. And maybe we're waiting for Partey to come back. Maybe that is the case. I'm not sure it is. I just don't think they're kind of willing to put enough faith in him right now. It's going to be interesting, of course, when the lineup for the Manchester City game comes out this evening, how Arteta approaches that. Is he going to go for experience? Is he going to go for youth? We won't touch on that too much because, of course, when this goes out and a lot of people watch this later on when the game would have happened. But now you've both kind of said around looking from within, looking at what we need to do within the club. Let's talk about the fun stuff, which is, of course, kind of other players from other places. Toby, I'm interested to get your thoughts on the type of kind of creative player that I assume that you would like to see Arsenal move for, and any other positions as well you think are going to be a priority.
I wouldn't like to be harsh on that, but I think a second goalkeeper would be handy. I know we haven't seen a lot of Runnison.
I've seen enough.
Yeah. Obviously, a right back. You want me to mention players?
You can if you like. It's up to you, mate. Yeah.
I haven't really had a look like positions. I want what I would like is a second goalkeeper, a right back, a centre mid. But I feel like Aziz could actually come in, and we've got Guendouzi out, who's playing well in that, and whatever happens with that, will that take up a spot where we don't need to sign anyone?
Yeah.
But for now, I would say a centre mid, attacking player. I think, people in the Discord chat were saying about, your best friend, Tom, how do you say his name? Szoboszlai?
Szoboszlai.
I didn't
realise how difficult it was to say.
It is, yeah. But obviously that looks like it's not happening. That's what I would go for. I haven't really seen a lot of any attacker midders. Like, you've got Isco, but would that, people can question, would that be another Ozil situation? I think that's all we need is those areas: goalkeeper, right back, a centre mid if Guendouzi comes back and Mikel's liking him, and then a attacker mid. That's what I think. That's what are my thoughts.
I think it's interesting. You talked about the attacking midfielder last, which I kind of enjoyed, because looking at other positions which have gone kind of a little bit under the radar, under the carpet. What's important is if we go back to the original points that you both brought up about the need to get players out first. And I'm very much an advocate of saying, look, Socrates and Ozil, if you're not going to leave, we're just going to pay up your contracts, because there is nothing positive that you can offer to the club by just training for 6 months, using the facilities, training with the players other than being fodder for training matches. And that is the only thing that they would be able to offer for me. And we've kind of heard from little fits and spurts from the media that there's a couple of kind of, not necessarily snakes in the grass, but just people that are kind of unsettling the group and leaking information. And we don't know who these people are ultimately, but you can have a pretty good guess, and it's probably going to be people that aren't particularly happy, that aren't getting too many minutes. And so you start to narrow that down. But it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, how Arsenal tackle the outgoings. But the incomings, I'm not expecting them to go massive, because listening to the Ornstein and Chapman podcast this morning, David Ornstein was very much around the fact that this is a very difficult window to tackle. January, anyway, regardless of the COVID situation, it's always difficult for clubs to get a lot of business done. Sometimes you see some mega deals happen, like we have with Aubameyang, like Manchester United did with Bruno Fernandes. But ultimately, it's a window where it's for panic buys. It's for players that are desperately needing to leave, players that are desperately needed by other clubs that they couldn't get done in the summer. So Edu's got a hell of a job to try and do the amount of stuff that we feel that we need to do. Dave, I'm now interested to get kind of your thoughts on the players or the positions. You don't necessarily have to name the players, but I'd love to get your thoughts on who you think we should go for. You need to unmute yourself. There we go. Awesome.
Yes. Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, if we could get a goalkeeper in, I have no confidence in Runnison at all. I think he should have actually been probably a midfielder. He's got better feet than he has hands. So, I think Leno is the type of goalkeeper that actually thrives under pressure. I think with Martinez there, it wasn't a foregone conclusion that he was number one, and I think that makes you a better player. It pushes you on rather than, right, that's it, Leno, you're a shoo-in now for the first team. You don't have to worry about it. Runnelson's nowhere near your class, and that's that. So yeah, I agree. I think we should look at a goalkeeper. The problem is funds. I mean, we sold Emi Martinez, and they were going to spend however many million, 15 million or something like that on a decent keeper. I just can't see that happening. So I'd love it, but I don't think so. What's interesting is Ornstein actually said that we were after a right-sided centre-back, which takes us back to our discussion about holding. I just think we're overstocked in that area, and we forget we've also got Chambers that is there as well. And I've always rated him. He's just got an incredibly bad injury record. So I think we don't need to look at that. I think we need, as we've talked about many times, one attacking midfielder for sure, one with a bit of a directness and ability to look up and play a pass, because we just don't seem to have that. But ideally, we need two, because if you look at how unbalanced that midfield is and the options that we've got, and we've got two defensive midfielders that are on loan at the minute, we've still got a load still sitting there. So for me, it's going to cost a lot. It's going to cost a few quid, but Buendia, but because I'd go for him over Aouar, because A, he's got Premiership experience, B, he's going to be cheaper, C, Norwich might sell and probably be easier to deal with than Olas. And I'm concerned about Aouar's value, really. I mean, you're talking 50, 60 million quid. I've seen him a few times, and I think there's obviously a lot, more people out there have seen him a lot more than I have, but I'm not convinced. I think he's a luxury type of player. I don't see him grabbing games by the scruff of the neck, which is, I think that's what we need. Very difficult to find, but it's at least one, hopefully two, attacking midfielders that can transform it. And when Partey's back, allow that back four to happen, and then move on. But until then, I'd say we could. I mean, I know, all right, we didn't create much under a 3-4-3, but at least we were a bit more competitive.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Dave, you made about needing two. Because if one of them gets injured, then you're going to need someone else to come in. But even then, you could even go out and buy one and keep like a Emil Smith Rowe to learn under this player that we've come in. So we're saving a bit of money instead of going out and getting two, sort of thing.
I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that just one creative player solves all of our problems at all. It goes way deeper than that. It's systemic. I mean, there's systematic problems with what Arteta wants to do, and a creative player playing centrally is not going to help us fling balls into the box, and it's not going to help us convert those chances either, if that's the way that Arteta wants to play. You've also got the idea that just because you sign two kind of attacking midfield players doesn't mean you have to play one or the other. I mean, if you look at the most possession-dominant sides in Manchester City, they like to play Kevin De Bruyne deeper. You can play next to a Gundogan, play next to a Fernandinho, and then they'll play someone else instead in the attacking midfield role more centrally. So it gives you options by signing more than just one. Do I think we'll sign two in the January window? I'm very, very doubtful of that. I'm kind of hedging my bets to think we will get one. Edu's referenced the fact and the need to get one. Supposedly the planning is done. So if it is done, then surely they're going to be making moves fairly quickly to get that situation sorted. Let's see what some of you guys are saying in the chat box. Lars says Sell, Macy, Bellerin, Socrates, Holding, Mustafi, Chambers, Louise, Koscielny, Kolasinac.
Look how many people there.
Ozil, El Neni, Xhaka, and Lacazette. It's a lot, but we got a big squad, so it doesn't surprise me.
That's the starting 11, isn't it?
It is a starting 11. It's a Europa League squad right there. Get a stopper, a centre mid, a number 10, and a striker / left sort of forward type player. Daniel Roberts says that he would take the Xhaka Ericsson swap deal that's been supposedly touted. For me, if it's a loan, I would. If it's a permanent situation, I wouldn't be putting too much stock in Ericsson on a permanent deal. I'm worried that the club may pursue that route, similar to how I'm worried they may pursue the Isco sort of thing as well. So I'm hoping that if it is Ericsson, it's just a loan deal and we're kind of prepping ourselves for a better player, a younger player in the summer. Machiavelli says it's cheaper for Arsenal to get both Socrates and Ozil out of the club at the end of the contract rather than pay out. I mean, I'm not sure if it is specifically cheaper in terms of obviously those wages, which would include appearance bonuses that I think you may have to pay out. There might be specifically deals which can get done. But I think ultimately it's more than getting them to pay out. If they're the types of players that are willing to just sit around until the end of this contract, it's a shame. And I think it's, as a footballer, especially as footballers coming towards the end of your career, you've lost 6 months of your career now by not playing senior football. If your mindset is in January that you're not trying to look to go somewhere, even if Arsenal are willing to completely write off a transfer fee and say, look, you can go somewhere else or you can go on loan to the end of the contract, you have to really question the kind of mental direction that these guys are going as footballers, that they're coming towards the end. If you're a young player, you'd think maybe I've got a year where I can stick it out. I can learn under a lot of these professional guys that have got more experience than me. But if you're Socrates and Ozil, that you're in your 30s now and you want to lose out on a whole year of football, I would be looking as clubs in the summer, do I really want to sign these guys on a free contract? So I think it does more of a benefit to them to look for a move in January. I've heard that Napoli are supposedly interested in Socrates. We'll have to see how that one plays out. But Ozil, the only rumours were to DC United, and that's gone fairly cold recently too. So I'm kind of expecting Ozil to be here by the end of the season. Zamir says Ericsson would be like signing Willian or Louise. It's more dressing room issues and more big wages on a washed up player, which I can't disagree with. Drogbinho, thank you for the donation, mate. He says Arteta out 4-3-3-1. Oh, sorry, I read that as 4-3-3. I was like pretty sure you can't field that as a formation, but his formation would be Leno, Maitland-Niles, Tierney, Gabriel, Saliba, Partey, Torreira, Guendouzi, Pepe, Saka and Martinelli. So getting Torreira and Guendouzi back at the end of their loan deals into the team. That includes no one that's being brought in. This team is not as bad as people might think it is. So that's an interesting one as a 4-3-3. There's no kind of real creative attacking players in that midfield, which would worry me, but you would expect that maybe from the front three, which would include Pepe or Martinelli being one of the two central players, which is quite interesting. Let's talk about what we then expect the club to do. So we've kind of said what we want them to do, but now we get onto the difficult discussion of what we think they will do. And Chatbox, you can, of course, get involved with this and tell me what you genuinely, honestly believe realistically the club are going to do this January, be it outgoings, be it incomings. Dave, I'm going to go back to you first, mate. What do you think the club will do?
Very little, I think, is unfortunately the answer. We are well known for leaving things to the last minute. I mean, I know the Partey deal was a great example of that, but there were reasons for that, so I won't get into that. But we rarely do we have things lined up from day one. You know, we're not going to be signing anybody on the 1st of January. I know you said the other day, Tom, that if we don't get anybody by about the 14th of January, we should be worried. Well, I expect to be worried if I were you, because
cheers, mate.
I not wanting to put too much of a negative spin, this is how we do it, because the owners aren't coming along with a bucket load of cash, although that could possibly change because it did happen with Partey, to say let's get the deal done on these players. And I just think that this is just symptomatic of the lack of experience within the management structure that would allow us to go and get these players lined up and signed and incorporated and integrated into the squad as soon as possible. I like what Edu did with Gabriel and Partey. You've got to take hats off, no problem. Sorry, this is my golden retriever coming in.
It reminds me of that new. To be fair, I was getting flashbacks to that news report where that reporter's child and baby came in for a second, which would have been hilarious. But no,
yeah.
Go on, carry on, mate.
He's a gooner though, so fair enough. He's just gone in it.
He died in red.
Yeah. So yeah, I have low expectations, which means hopefully they could be beaten quite significantly. But as I said, we won't be signing anybody in the first, I'd say 10 days to 14 days. Hopefully after that we will see some movement. But I think it's going to be a slow window. I think people are talking it up. I just see the same problems that we saw in the summer with lack of finance. Players wanted to stick around. Nobody really wants to travel anywhere because of COVID, etc. So in reality, I hope that we get to see those two attacking midfielders, but I don't know. I'm not sure. It's a 50-50 for me at the minute.
Toby, what do you think the club are going to do?
Good question. Well, even like 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th of January, I think is early for us. I think we like to leave it, don't we, till even the 30th, the 29th sort of thing, to come out and say, like, I think, who was it? Was it Ozil? That was it on like deadline day? So even in that sense, we like to leave it late. But I agree with Dave, very little I think that's going to happen in January. And even if Arteta did get the players he wanted and he needed in, I feel like it'll be easier to get them in at the end of the season, so he has more time to use what he wants to do with them in the pre-season games and that. Because if you get them in now and you shove them in, they're straight into the squad. Some people can deal with that, but I don't know whether even if they get one player in, that will make a difference to what we're trying to do for the rest of the season and where we want to go for the future. So yeah, I don't even think we're going to get the players out that we need to get out. So yeah, very little in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't blame you for having that view, and I mean both of you have kind of said very little as just opening statements. Very quickly, Jogbinho, thank you again for the donation. He says you don't need a 10 to create in football, which is true. You just need to look at Liverpool. Don't typically play with a number 10. Play with that single pivot and then the two in front. So I'm not surprised that people have that view, but they have some very, very good wide players and exceptionally creative fullbacks. So that's kind of the difference that they have compared to us right now. And you still see the midfielders certainly chipping in. Henderson is kind of that player that keeps them ticking over in the middle, which is good. Let's scroll back and see what some of you guys think is what's going to happen in the January window. Anthony Michael says, I expect a Walcott goal, Iwobi assist, Giroud and Welbeck incoming, sealed by an Everton Suarez. Remember him? Masterclass of Benfica. Yeah, he's the Brazilian that was joined, that we were linked to, that was at Gremio, has gone to Benfica. So it's going to be interesting playing against him. He will obviously score, which is just what is going to happen. Jared Covers says Socrates to leave and we're going to sign one midfielder. David thinks that Socrates and Ozil are both going to go. Nonchalant97 says Isco coming on loan. home, definitely. Daniel Robert just thinks that we should back Arteta, in his view. Callum says Arteta will stay and sign one Cam, and we can pray beyond that. Alex McCarthy says 1 incoming, 1 outgoing, 1 signing, and possibly 1... I don't know what the difference between 1 incoming and 1 new signing is, Alex, but you've invented a completely new way of looking at things. Possibly 1 sacking. We'll have to wait and see. Nonchalant thinks we should get Buendia in. To be fair, you've corrected yourself, Alex. I'll give you that. 1 incoming, 1 outgoing, 1 new contract is what you meant. So fair enough, mate. But yeah, as we come to kind of towards the end of the show and looking ahead to what is going to be the next Premier League game, because we are recording on the night of the Man City game, which I don't want to touch upon too much because the show will go out of date very quickly. So without obviously knowing what happens in the Man City game, which will have an impact on team selection and choices and what will happen in the Chelsea game, Dave, how are you looking at that Chelsea game? Because we've got a kind of a run of 4 fixtures after that against sides around us, which is the way we have to describe them now. So how do you look at that Chelsea game being approached? Do you go into it with the mindset of it's kind of a free hit in a way because our form is so poor that we could maybe just go for it and try and get something? Or do you think we should kind of go for the tactics we had towards the end of last season where you set up to try and hit them on the counter? Where's your head at with it?
Yeah, I think we need to revert back to the 3-4-3. I think we're not ready to play this the 4-2-3-1 kind of thing, or 4-3-3, which is what Arteta was looking at as well. I think he's tried to transition into that too quickly. I think one of Arteta's failings is that he may listen to fans a little bit too much. I mean, we've all got opinions. We'll say, yeah, Aubameyang, please play him up front. As soon as he does that, nothing actually happens. So I would say we go back to the 3-4-3, and if we did that, we've at least got some sort of sense of solidity at the back. Luiz is back fit, so he can pass the ball out. He was actually our best player the other night, I thought, against Everton. I saw the game, or bits of it anyway, last night, Chelsea versus West Ham, and West Ham were actually not that bad, and we still beat them at the beginning of the season. But Chelsea just picked them off, and 2 late goals, obviously 2 quick ones as well. But Chelsea, they've got some frightening pace up front, and that was without the likes of Kai Havertz playing, etc. So, yeah, fear is a word I think we go into this game with. But if we just change it to 3-4-3, we might be able to get a draw, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not confident, put it that way. I don't see us winning a game at the minute. That's my real problem. Yeah. In the old days, it used to be a case of, well, it doesn't matter, what the game is, who we're playing against, we will score goals, and that's stopped. So we just didn't know how many, but we knew we would score, and now we don't know if we're going to score. So if we don't score, we're not going to be winning games. The best we can do is draw. So I don't know. I'm worried about it, but if he does go to a 3-4-3, at least we've got a chance of a result of sorts.
Score? I'm going to press you.
1-1.
Well, okay. I'm liking that is confidence for Arsenal these days, we should say. So I appreciate that. Toby, where's your head's at for Chelsea?
I think at home is probably our downfall really for this game, because like Dave said, Chelsea are free-flowing football and that, so our past results at home haven't been great, so that doesn't really give me any hope. And going back to what Dave said, Arteta, about listening to the fans, funny enough, in the press conference yesterday, I saw I don't know what the question he was asked by the reporter, but I think it was something down the lines of, have you got anyone you talk to? Like, I know you've got 3 coaching staff, and he said about he gets all these opinions from people 25 years in the league, sort of thing. So I don't know whether that's having to play on his options and what he's choosing for game days. But going to the game on Saturday, I don't know. I don't know really what to expect. I think to expect goals.
Oh, for who?
Yeah, goals. Whether it's Chelsea or Arsenal, but yeah, formation is going to be key, and tonight's going to be very, very important to see who he goes with. I remember yesterday when you was doing the show, I said about Martinelli. I wouldn't like him to start because we saw what he did last year at Chelsea. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see who he goes with tonight. But with a prediction, I'm going to say 2-2.
Goals, you said goal. I mean, the last time we scored 2 goals was against Sheffield United, which feels an absolute year ago in the league, that is, I should say. So,
I think the last I think I went to the game when we played Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. Funny enough, that is today. We played them and we beat them in the semi-final, and then that's when we went on to lose against Man City in the final. And we played well there, and that was at home as well. So whether that could be a good sign, sort of thing, I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see. It's gonna be, yeah.
We are going to have to wait and see. It's going to be an interesting game, as is tonight's, which I say I'm not going to talk about too much because a lot of people that would have watched this will know the result of that. But if you have tuned in before that, we will be live straight after that. And if you've tuned in after and you didn't tune in for the straight live reaction, we'll be live straight after the game. So make sure you catch up on that, where I'm assuming that Toby and Dave will be found in the chat box. But thank you, boys. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you both on. First of all, Toby, do you want to tell people where they can find if you want them to, of course. You don't have to tell them who Twitter is, but let them know.
Well, it's Toby House. Basically, it's just all Arsenal on there. But my channel's Now Arsenal. I'm looking to do just some football bits as I play football. So I'm just looking to do some football bits, some videos and that, help people out, especially for like the lockdown and tier 4s, and if it is going to go into even worse situations in the new year. So yeah, that's where you can find me, Toby House on Twitter, and Now Arsenal on YouTube.
Nice. So make sure you go and check out some of Toby's stuff. That's an interesting idea. I'll make sure I check that out, mate. So good stuff. And Dave, I mean, you did you create a Twitter specifically recently because you tried to claim that you didn't have one? So talk us through that.
I'm a follower. I'm not a trendsetter or an influencer like yourself. I just follow people and look at politics and all that sort of stuff. But some of the stuff I do rant about a little bit, mostly when I've had a drink, and it's usually about Arsenal. So
Christmas won't be well then, will it? Especially Boxing Day after. Oh no.
Yeah, so it's at Wave Machine 2.
That's
my Twitter.
Fantastic stuff. So make sure you go and check out the guys on their social medias. Of course, Toby and Dave are both members of our expert member crew and our Discord server, which is a fantastic sort of small community that we've built over here at TGT, full of genuinely nice people that just love the club and want to talk about Arsenal all day long, which they do. Talk about Arsenal all day long. It's never stopping in there, even at night time with different time zones waking up every now and again. So it's fantastic to see that community grow, and you can join the crew by clicking that join button in the description below. But it's been a pleasure to speak to Toby and Dave, both of you. I'm sure I'll see you back on the show at some point in the near future. Make sure you check out their channels and Twitters and ourselves at The Gonna Talk TV, at Tom Canton Media, and we're on Twitch now. I mean, I've done a couple of shows on there. I don't know what it really is. I've never used it before, but it's there. So hello anyone who's tuned in on Twitch. We had 3 viewers on it last time. Result. So looking forward to seeing some more people maybe tuning in on that outlet. But we'll be live straight after the Manchester City game for whatever awaits us there. But we'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.